But it's basically the whole idea is people who have shared goals.
Is there a question or something you always wanted to answer, but nobody around?
No, really. The last thing that I said, I think, is when you are doing something, try to do it for the right reasons.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's online stream with Juan Serantes. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Ajce Štindlové, and I'll be facilitating today's interview. I'm one of the volunteers for Rise and Shine, which is holding this event. Rise and Shine is an educational platform which helps students in terms of self-development, self-consciousness, teaching soft skills, finding a little bit their direction in life through different events, such as conferences, lectures, workshops, and networking as well. And let me also introduce you and welcome here our guest, Juan Serantes. Hello, Juan. Juan is a project manager, facilitator, speaker with many years of experience in project managing, not only here in Canary Islands, but also abroad in different parts of the world, such as in Canada, United States, Australia, or Nicaragua, Peru, and South Africa, right? He has a postgraduate degree in sustainable tourism. He's certified coach, group facilitator, also associate professor at Universidad Europea de Canarias. And he describes himself as enthusiastic about social innovations and entrepreneurship, outdoor activities, responsible tourism, volunteering, learning new things, and much more. Today's topic of the interview will be communities and community management. Just a brief info about the organization. We now have about 45 minutes for the interview. So now we can get to the topic. Juan, I know you're very experienced in this field and that you have a lot to share with us. So I'm really looking forward what you got to say today. And on behalf of Rise and Shine, I thank you for accepting our invitation.
I was following the recommendations that we had before too much.
Yeah, it's okay. It happens.
Yeah. Thanks for the introduction. I would like to have a bit less experience, be a bit younger, but I'm not too old anyways. But well, I hope I can share with you some of the things that I've lived and some of the things that I've learned. And first of all, I don't think so I've done a lot of things in my life related to this topic, but it's basically because I like working with people and working in projects, and I've done that for the last 20 years quite a lot. So that's basically my only trick was that, and a lot of errors. And when we were doing things wrong, trying to fix them and trying to find the best solutions for any of those things. So that's the story, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. So it's basically. So I hope experience and problems and mistakes are going to be helpful for people through this speak and I hope also be able to answer questions, because I think that will be the most interesting part probably.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's always great to learn from somebody else's mistakes as well. But yeah. Before
it's better than learn from your mistakes. Yeah. Anyways.
Okay. Well, I have an opening question for you about the communities in general. Like, what actually is a community for you? How would you define it?
Well, I've been reading recently about the topic for teaching purposes, and always when you go about definitions, they always, every person decides to do it in a different way. But I would actually consider that the kind of like the words related to this topic are teams, groups, communities, ecosystems, are all kind of related. And I would say they are all, depending on how big they are, it's basically the whole idea is people who share goals. And and I think when you are a team, you share more goals. When you're a group, you share a bit less goals. And when you are a community, you share a bit less goals. An ecosystem, you share a bit less goals. And your society, a bit less goals. But you always share some amount of goals. So I think a community is probably the first medium-sized group, and it could be a good seed for a changing something in a society, or even for a culture change, because it's something that is validated by a kind of decent amount of people, and it's a good start. So because if you are doing something in groups of 5, it's more difficult to move it from a bigger scale, right? But if your group is something related to 50 or 200, that amount, it's something that, well, if 50 people can agree on something, and you might be able to make a change in a bigger scale, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So have you been part of big communities? I mean, during your life here or abroad, can you maybe share some of your experiences with the projects you were leading or you took part of?
Well,
I mean, if you can choose some, because I suppose there were many.
Well, I think, Ike, you and me, we share one community, which is surfing community.
Okay. Well, I try. Okay.
Yeah, I think we all. If you have fun with the surfboard, you are a surfer. That's what I heard. So you don't need to be a very good one to be one of us, I guess. But what I was thinking is, I've been part of communities, or I've been visiting communities. I would be more accurate. And trying to help them, or just to walk with them through different processes, or even sometimes to slow them. Not always. I wasn't always a helpful part of the community, because you were trying to do something, but sometimes you cannot. And so I would say, as a formal community, I've been working with, as you were saying, it wasn't a joke, with a part of sports. Like I was on my early days when I was working in ski resorts, I was pushing quite a lot the snowboard Spanish community, because I was one of the first certified teachers in the country. So we were trying to make it bigger and make it more responsible, and make it something that you can be proud of. So considering that Czech Republic is a great place for skiing, so I'm trying to get people related to something. And I've been also helping or living, more likely, in indigenous communities, especially in Nicaragua, which is the country that I have spent more time in the community of Salinas de Nahualapa, which is an indigenous community, but probably people already know that, but it's not that they are there with one stick and wearing really primitive clothes. It's not that. It's just that they are living in an area that is sacred. They manage it, so it belongs to the country, but they follow their own rules. So policemen, they cannot get in if they don't want to, and has a few conditions. So it's the land, it can be so it's all shared. You don't own a house, but you live in one, but you are not the owner of the house. You have the right of using it for a certain amount of time. And yeah, that's kind of like those one, more like formal communities. And later, I would say, I've been part of volunteer communities for certain projects. Some of them were short in time, some of them were longer. The other community that we share is a project that you and me, when we shared, is called Ruta Siete. It's with the students and volunteering, and we do kind of like the thing that you guys do with your organization in terms of empowering and orienteering, and we do it through the practice and through a very intense 35 days long trip. And I would say those, just as an example, are communities that I've been part of and have been active for a while. Or
if I can ask, how does one become a member of a community of indigenous people in Nicaragua? I mean, you said they are pretty like
well,
close.
that's what I was saying with the part of being part of an indigenous community is you are not an indigenous, but if you live in an indigenous community, if you work for the non-profit organization of an indigenous community and you are helping them with their projects, you are part. I would say, for example, on that term, I would say you're part of their ecosystem. You know, it's just they are not just an indigenous community; they are an indigenous community who they do projects and they deal with tourism and they are trying to do more like community tourism or anything related to responsible or all that eco-tourism, all that cloud of terms. So that's I was working with that community in projects related to basically I was helping the local nonprofit for the nonprofit organization that they manage inside of the community, helping them to get organized with the volunteers that are coming from overseas, trying to soften out the process of being part of basically what we were doing in the main project that I worked for was trying to do documentation and education for the volunteers. When they arrive, they can understand where they are and being helpful as quick as possible, because one of the problems in those places is volunteers, they arrive and they don't really understand where are they till they are pretty much leaving, so their help is not that efficient, and most of them they don't speak the language, and even though I'm fluent in Spanish because it's my mother tongue, indigenous communities is you need to know more things than the language. There are certain things that if you don't pay attention, you miss them out.
I understand. I just wanted to add on that, because before you were speaking about, you mentioned Ruta Siete, which is the project here in Canary Islands. I wanted to add the information because maybe some of our viewers may be interested in how come that somebody from Canary Islands, is actually participating in an interview for a Czech platform based in Prague. How did that happen? So I'm actually kind of the connecting link here, because I volunteer for Rise and Shine and I'm from Prague, but I also participated in Ruta Siete in 2016 in Canary Islands. And I have to say that the community that is growing here throughout the years around this project is really nice and really heartwarming and kind, and people with such a strong attitude. So it's always really a pleasure for me to come back here, because I feel so welcome. Okay.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm here is because you are a friend of mine, and I cannot say no to you.
Thanks for coming. And maybe we can move on to more practical things concerning communities. So I wanted to ask you, what are actually the key pillars of a functioning community? What would you say is the most important thing that holds a community together?
Well, the most important thing, I would say, well, it depends. If you are trying to be a leader or of a community, or you are trying to make a small community bigger, those two things can happen. I would say it's having a small amount of values, but very hardcore ones. So don't try to make something very complex in terms of try to agree on any simple thing. Just try to make something, like big and easy to agree with, and later let the community find their own DNA in terms of how they want to fix that problem, how they want to, how are they going to be the rules to do it, and try to be flexible with that instead of trying to make something very strict. Because some people from the outside, they look at communities and they think, oh, that community is very well organized, has a very strong and a lot of values. So I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna start with something very well organized with a lot of values and very strong. And they don't understand that the communities have done that process themselves. It's not that the leader or the first person who talked about that had an idea and everyone said, that's a good idea, let's do that exactly how you said. It makes sense. So it's just starting from good values, something that you believe in it, and let the people destroy it somehow and make it their own, and keep it, but keep the whole, but keeping the soul, which normally our values are pretty international and pretty standard. So yeah, maybe I would say I read once, get in love with the problem, not with the solution. And it's a good mantra. So keep in mind the problem that you want to solve and let the community be able to move a bit. So I'm going to that extreme because I know the people normally goes to the other one. It started with a very well organized thing. So have an idea and let people help you to crystallize it to something solid, and that would be easy to hold for a longer period of time.
I understand. I was always thinking that maybe at the beginning you would actually need to have it quite organized, and to have the starting point and have the things clear and some rules and stuff, and then with the time is when you can actually start to delegate the things to the rest of the people. If it's
in terms of logistics and organization, more like a logistic way, I agree with you. But in terms of let's say philosophy of the problem of the project or values, it's more like what I said. Like I use the word non-organized, but what I meant is more a soft idea, not something that is very, very solid and square. But you need, in terms of logistics, you need a process that is well organized and has and you understand that you have to start in one point. You need to move forward and have some other things, if it makes sense.
I just wanted to have a quick review for those who came late. We are talking with Juan Serantes about communities and community management. We are approximately almost in the half of the interview. And so I would like to continue on what we were talking about the building actually of a community. So could you give our viewers a piece of advice on how to start a community if you really are starting from flat? You have an idea, you perhaps have values you want to share and promote. What would be the first steps? What people you should address? How to attract them?
Okay, I would say you need a reason for a gathering. You need to you need something that are going to put people together, and that the reason that why the people is gathering doesn't have to be exactly your goal. It has to be something related to your goal, 45 degrees in the direction of your goal. And you need to try to find something appealing for that people and something fun and because I think that could be an advice too. I think we don't need to suffer to follow or to develop projects. We need to try to do projects that they are based on things that we like, and with those things that we like, solve problems. Because if you're running a project that is even though the reason or the problem that you are trying to solve is very important, but you are solving it through a very tough and difficult process, isn't going to be sustainable in time. You need something that is so find try to find imagine you're trying, I don't know, let's put an example. You're trying to, your main problem is beach cleaning. You live in an area that beaches or mountains are full of, or rivers. They have a lot of plastics and a lot of things that you would like to clean. If you, I don't know, if you start the first gathering with, well, let's go to that part of the river that smells really bad and try to clean it. And early in the morning, in the middle of the winter, because it's not a good idea, because you're not going to have a lot of people together. But maybe that people, if you're starting in another way, that people are going to end up there. And don't get me wrong. So, but you need to maybe, you know, do a gathering talking about what rivers are in a problem in our area. Let's try to organize a river cleaning all together, and you start talking about which rivers we're going to start to clean and see who shows up, because you first need to have your partners. Your first partners are going to be the people who they are keen to work and they are committed to the problem. So don't try to do something for everyone. Try to do something for, let's call them doers. You know, that people that are already doing things. So I would say that is a good start. Just trying to find something that is not that is fun. That is it can be in a bar. It can be kind of fancy somehow. But just talk about things, and with that, people try to plan something. Another thing that is helpful is try to. I like to. Sometimes you don't need to organize something new. You can join another organization that is almost dying because they are not doers there anymore, and you know, helping them to start and to restart again, or you know, stuff like that. I think that would be some tips that I can give for doing your first event or your first thing. We just yeah, doing something small is always good.
One of the questions that also people mentioned in the registration form was where in general is a good place to be looking for partners or sponsors or donors when you're starting a project. Again, how to attract the people, yeah, where to be looking for them.
Well, I would say we normally want to do you know, do a PDF, send it to someone, and we expect the person is going to ask for your bank account number, and they're going to put you money there. And as you push, you know, Alt, Control, T, and put your bank account number, you get the funding. It's always more difficult than that. Everyone knows that. But I would say start with start to think what what your partners could be. If they are companies, they are private companies. What are your sharing values with them? What problems they care and you care too? That's one good point. And if just reading websites, you don't need to call them. You will call them later, but just try to understand what they need and what they care that is the same. I don't care if it's for the same reasons than you or for different reasons. We will talk about that later. So imagine, for example, I don't know, a transport company in your area. They know they want to have more customers, and they want people moving more or moving with them if there are more than one company. And they want people going to a certain place, and maybe that certain place that you want to go is the river that you want to clean. So and they also, if they operate in that area, they might want to relate that brand with a positive footprint activity there, or be such as a river cleaning, lake cleaning, or whatever. So you're starting to So you need to know them. You need to pay attention to them and consider what they want. With public organizations, is more difficult because I rather work with private ones. Is not. I mean, I rather work with public ones. They give me money. They don't ask me to do anything. That would be perfect. I can do my own, but normally it doesn't work like that. But what I meant with I rather work with private is because privates, their goals is normally they are more sustainable in time than in public ones, because the politicians can change, and every politician is going to have a different view, and they can change a lot. It's difficult that that transport company we were talking about is going to change. Tomorrow they don't want people traveling in your area anymore. Probably they're going to still doing what. So that is one thing, knowing about them. The other thing is trying to build a PDF or a dossier or something that you cut in. You have different. Let's talk about services or you know. Categories of sponsorship, if it's what you're talking about, and try to do something that they want, and they are not very difficult for you, because sometimes we do very good activities, but they are unrelated to our main goals, and they may create us doing 3 or 4 times the work that we had to do, and it was at the end is unsustainable. So it has to be something easy for you, and has to be something that gives value to the partners, and organize it in categories. Let's say gold, silver, and bronze, for example. So 3 kinds of sponsors. And the other thing is start visiting people with that PDF, and ask them in that visit, be honest. It's like, look, we're starting doing that. This is my first meeting, and I would like to know, what do you like about the PDF? What you don't like about the PDF? What do you think is? What do you think I should add to those benefits that I gave you? And ask them. And most of the people, I learned a lot from the people that said no to me. So you need to talk with that people, and you need to go and you say, no, we are not interested. Oh, thank you very much, appreciate it. Can you please spend more 5 minutes with me and explaining to me why you don't want to be part of this? And with that information, you're gonna have a better PDF and a better dossier, and it's more likely people are gonna sponsor you or help you out. So I think that's my best advice. Don't be afraid of the no word, and you need 20 no's at least for having a decent, and I would say 100 for having a very good. And sometimes it happened to me. I went once to that sponsor, and when I was already visiting 20, I came to the first one with all the changes, and the first one said, "No, I love it." So, so you never know. So ask people. That's good. And another thing is, I would appoint as higher as I can in terms of companies. It's not because maybe that huge company is not going to sponsor you because you are such a small project, but they are the best one giving advices, because those guys, they see a lot of projects every year, every day, every month. So maybe you go there, you know they are going to say no, but they are going to give you good advices if you deal with them properly and they help you out.
Yeah, are people keen to spend time actually on this? I mean, here maybe
it also depends of your. It depends of how you play. Sometimes you have a crappy project, but a very good attitude and motivation, or you're trying to fix a very complex problem, and they admire that you have the thrive and the determination for trying to fix it. I know you like photography. I was in I don't know if you know the magazine Geo. It's a French magazine. It's like a National Geographic from France. When I was 23, we tried to sell a report that's meant to Geo in their office in Barcelona. I mean, there was no way we can publish there, but the guy thought these kids are fun and let's talk to them, and they gave us a lot of good advices.
That's nice, actually. I was thinking maybe if it could be because if there is kind of a cultural difference as well, and maybe because you have experience from abroad and here from Spain, if you think it may be easier here in Spain in terms of creating a community than, for instance, let's say Central Europe or Northern Europe. Or you wouldn't say?
There are differences for sure, but I don't think it's something, I couldn't say better or worse. For example, I would say here, maybe the start could be easier.
Because people are more open, or?
Because people are more keen to try new things, maybe, or they are less, their time is less organized and they are more open to make changes, more flexible. It's a topic, but it could be. It doesn't work for every single person, but it works somehow. But pushing the communities forward, I think it's probably easier with Northern Europeans. Once they are in, the degree of compromise is slightly higher, or it could be slightly higher, because I don't like but of course there are cultural differences. We're just talking about generalities, but in generalities, that's what I would say. I don't think I wouldn't think in terms of easier and more. More
You're right. Maybe that was a kind of a stereotypic question.
No, but the stereotypics are good for. So you need to learn and understand them. Sometimes to realize that they were not true, or they were not as certain as you thought. But of course, it makes difference.
Yeah. Okay, so finding a sponsor or donor is definitely one of the toughest thing when finding or when becoming trying to find a new way how to do a project or starting a community. What would be the other challenges and how to face them when maybe you already have a community and you're trying to maintain it? Could you share some experience about that?
Yeah, energy is a good challenge, especially if you are the leader. Energy, you can't build communities based on your energy, because you will have a lack of energy in some stage. So you need to let the communities. That's why it's important that even though the main values are going to be strong, you let the communities deform other things to make them able to push the community by themselves. And I would say, well, and just going quickly for the donors bit, the problem is sometimes leaders, they imagine one thing and one project, and they want money for that project exactly how they thought about it. They don't want to change. They don't want to change anything to that project. Another is same thing I was saying. You need to co-create the projects also with the partners. You have to do that too. And with Ruta Siete, for example, in our community, the partners are part of it somehow, or just some of the ecosystem. And we are, in certain things, we are all aligned. And in other things, we are not. But you need to just be aligned in a few core values to be able to push them and to create better things. So, yeah. And the other thing you were asking me, which other, well, the problems are going to be communities are changing all the time. So it's the same as you need to understand, even though you probably move the first rock, you are not the boss, or you might be the leader for certain things, but any healthy community is not based on one person. It's based on a lot of people, and they are mutating and changing. So embrace the process is another challenge that is not that easy to do. And sometimes when you try to do something with your community, and you try to maybe push another project into the community, and it doesn't work, read the community and read what they are saying with the different voices. And maybe you need to understand that the community is like a net. So maybe you just need to realize that you have to do another project, not the center one in the community, and not everyone in that community has to join that project. You're kind of, it's a net, and the projects and the communities are connected. So that's something that helped me out a lot in terms of that. What is the same notes? I think you get my point. Like a nodo in Spanish, and so it's every knot of in a net. You have a fisherman net. Every knot has tension, and maybe the bigger knot is in the center and has more weight, and has more ropes attached to it. But you can create another knots, and there are. Yeah, so that when you have a community, you need to read it, and sometimes you lost it. So you are not you're not the leader anymore, but the community is still going. So
so what you mean is that maybe if you want to move in any direction with the community, you have to count on that. Maybe it will not be possible, but you can always like create a new way of another kind of community, and the projects can overlap, and then you can get the most out of it somehow.
Exactly. And don't put a lot of tension in the same community under one name and the one idea that has to hold every single value. Try to create small different things, and later, from a bigger perspective, all of that, it would be a community somehow. And you are just I think the best communities I'm part of, I'm not the main part. I was once, but I'm not anymore. So, and that's what made me proud, because another way, if you create something that depends on you, I don't think it's very healthy for anyone.
Speaking about energy and motivation, you have to maybe put the effort at the beginning in the creating, and then in the recent years we have been dealing with a lot of changes in the, with all the coronavirus crisis. Many projects have been postponed or even cancelled. So one question that was repeating also a lot in the registrations, and I see it nowadays also in one of the comments from Irene, that how you deal with this, with the pandemics. How do you keep the high spirits and maintain the integrity of the community online, actually, with now the restrictions and stuff? So the question from Irene is if you could get some give us some practical tips on how to keep the community online alive, because nowadays people are active online. Everyone is sick of being online for work and study, and they want to do more things. So what would you suggest?
Yeah, well, it's a very good question. I'm just going to tell you guys one thing that it's been very helpful for me, and later I will try to make it online thing. So I think every relationship in a community is based on two different layers. One, it would be content. It is what we believe in. Maybe ecology could be our content, right? You and me, we agree on something about ecology, and that's what we work on that together. And the other one is our relationship, not just what we believe in is just how much we like each other and why we like each other, and how how much time we have spent together. For example, you and me, we share values, but we have shared time too. And that also make us a better. So because we did something that took care of our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, but that would be a thing to do it before. I mean, like, I understand what you want to say. If the people are
but
connected.
What I mean is, when we are doing things online, because the relationship, it's not possible. We just based on content, or we think the relationship is not possible. So what we do is we try to do things, and doing things without having a relationship, without seeing each other, without talking, without drinking tea, or going for a walk, or just any other activity that is related to the main problem. But it was before we were doing that, we don't understand how important that was before.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, first of all, we need to take care of the relationships online. So it could be you have to meet the people, maybe just for telling jokes, just maybe for asking how they are doing, just calling them for a while. So it's just something we need to humanize the communication. And there are tools that can help us. I think we are all... If we compare, for example, the relationship, I have friends that I don't see them oftenly, but I am part of WhatsApp groups with them.
Mm.
And those WhatsApp groups, instead of going down during the pandemic, they went up. There were more comments, more people talking. And so you get my point. That's weird. Like we are in a lack of activity in our projects, but all the social stuff online has been going very high. So I think it makes sense, but I think the challenge is trying to move relationship inside of the online and on a way that is not affecting our work, but is affecting our relationship positively. How you can do that, for example, I think all of us working with Slack or with any other communication tool that is kind of like the WhatsApp for working. Try to add, for example, the profiles of the people of your company with a funny photo, with a video to present themselves, with a little story. It will be like the characters of a book. We do that on our organization. You have there, like Juan likes that, hates that, favorite food. Just a few things to humanize that, and try to have meetings with people, and on those meetings, not just to start with okay, the goals for the week are this, and that. Let's try to start just maybe with 3 sentences. How was your week? What were you doing? I know I'm saying things who are not very I don't know, bright or magical, but I'm saying in general it works if you pay a bit more attention to that, and you dedicate some time to interaction and asking people, and ask them to record a video of how was your month, and you put it on your Slack, and people can watch it. People are going to be more keen to talk and to move forward. Other thing is, if we are trying to push projects that are offline, that they can't be done on with the pandemic, you need to pivot, and you need to change, and you need to face other projects, and you need to create something that is more related to the reality that we are having at the moment, because we are all struggling with that. With some of us, we have projects that are just basically stopped or frozen. Yeah. We are hoping things are going to be better soon, but the thing is, sometimes those projects are. We need to accept they are frozen and try to move to another ones. That's maybe another thing that it happened to me. It happened with projects. Ruta Siete, for example, is completely in the freezer. And it's the only, but we are working with other projects, and those other projects are moving a lot, and so I know it's difficult, and I'm struggling with that too. But that's another thing that I could say. I don't know if I was helpful, but those some of the things that crossed my mind about it.
Okay, thank you for sharing. We are almost at the end. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions. So I would like to ask you maybe if you can give us a recommendation for some source of information about all these topics we've been talking about. Perhaps your favorite book, not only about communities and management, but also about perhaps motivation and where to get inspired with new projects. And I think we lost you for a while.
No, but I was hearing you. Don't worry.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So okay, so I would say there are a few sources that we all can get information from. One thing I would say, it's the marketing people write a lot about communities, and it's a great book that you can marketers, but you can use it for any other purpose. And those guys, they are serious workers, and they do a lot of. I think marketing is a tool that it's good if you use it for good purposes, and it's bad if you use it for bad purposes. So it's nothing, doesn't have any. So I would say Tribes from Seth Godin is a great book about communities, and is their approach is very very marketing, but it's very, very good book. I'm thinking another source of information. It's the eco villages. They are they're those projects that people living together, and they are facing a lot of difficulties, and they deal with them. I would say there is some education called EDE, Eco Village Design Education. And it's done by and is run by an organization called Gaia. You can check that online easily. And those guys, they have books, and some of the books I don't remember exactly, but they think it's economic, architecture, and there are 4 dimensions, and one dimension is human dimension, and the human dimension. All that they're writing is very helpful related to communities. I would also say don't get crazy with those ideas, because some of them are very complex, but some of them are very simple and very good. So for any of those books, you read a bit and you pick up the things that are helpful. Forget the rest. That's what I do, and it's probably the best advice for anything, for this speech or for any other thing. And another source of information could be anything that is related to human resources in companies. And I kind of like the new systems for organizations. Probably everyone has heard about Agile system for getting organized, if you check Agile system organizations, it's a lot of methodologies, and they have ceremonies, and they are very organized, and I think are helpful for running groups and working with people. And yeah, I think those more than, I said the book about Seth Godin, but any marketing books about communities, literature or websites or videos related to eco villages, especially the EDE, Eco Village Design Education. They have because they have a process, well-organized process. And another thing is group facilitation. There's a lot of literature also about group facilitation. you have books, and you have things that are. There is one girl called Beatrice Briggs that has a few books that are nice and related to that. And yeah, I think those are the main sources I would recommend for getting more information, and of course asking people and writing them emails, and yeah, that's what I and being paying attention and asking questions to the good leaders that you have around, and it's a good. This is what I learned most of my things, and asking them for their favorite books and reading them, just so it's connected.
Okay, thank you for the recommendations. If you didn't catch all of them, then I mean our viewers, we will try to put them in the links in the comments later on, so you can find them easily. We are almost heading to the end, so this is the last chance for you to write any more questions in the comment section. We had questions from Ren. We have also a question from Pavel, and he's asking about any specific details you find very useful in communities here in Spain, for instance, or somewhere else from abroad. Something you took with yourself that would be helpful, and we could get inspired by that in Czech Republic. I'm not really sure what Pavel means with that. But
me neither. That's what I was hoping you can clarify a bit.
Never mind. And maybe if you have some
maybe
tips,
it's more like initiatives or things that I've seen that can be inspiring, or Pavel, if you're there, if you want to make yourself clearer, you can. I'm gonna answer that if you want to. I think I don't know. I kind of like everything that it's happening in the last. So I rather follow trends that are on for the last 5 years, and they've been growing constantly and healthily, than things that are maybe working for the last 50 and they are huge. Because maybe some of those things are just a train. Yeah, and you never know. Maybe it's a train going 300 meters per hour, 300 kilometers per hour, and it looks so fast, but maybe it's just going slower and slower and slower, but we didn't realize. And are better initiatives that are new and they are growing fast and they are growing healthy, and you can look at them. So I would say in terms of that, well, what I would say, I think maybe that's a good example. It's that especially young people with nowadays, we have the feeling that having an Instagram account with a very fancy logo and very good photos can change the world. And I think it can change the world. But just a few of them, the ones who are doing something amazing. If you want to do a project and you want to run a community, you want to start a community, maybe you can start with a Facebook, with an Instagram account with very nice photos, and you're going to grow an audience about it. But in some stage, you need to do something actionable. And it's I would say the projects that I like the most are projects that are they are actively fixing something, or actively I think there are three things that move us. One thing is to create something that doesn't exist but it needs to be created, to avoid something for disappearing, or the third one, it will be to right something that is wrong, to fix something. So we all tend to start with denouncing something and just complaining about something. and it's necessary to do that, because the diagnosis is the first step to change something. But you need to move. You need to move to action quick, because another way you'll be stuck in the middle. So I would say any project that I love are projects of people changing, actively doing something, and they're not complainers. They are just doers, and and it's easier to complain, but you don't sleep well because you think someone else has to do it. When you are doing it, you sleep a lot, or you sleep well because you're very tired because you've been doing things.
Juan, our time is almost up. I don't think we have more comments. Thank you for those who asked your questions. I have one final question for you, and I was thinking, because you've probably done a lot of interviews so far. Is there a question or something you always wanted to answer, but nobody ever asked you?
No, really.
Okay.
No, really. I just, I think for the last thing that I said, I think is the most bright thing that I keep in mind often, is just when you are doing something, try to do it for the right reasons. For just reasons that are making you happy and changing the world. Just not avoid trying to do things just to looking for someone who is the problem, or just diagnosis is the first step. I don't think it's a goal itself, or at least I'd rather do something else apart of complaining.
Yeah, I agree. It's always good to do something that you feel is reasonable and makes sense for you, right? And for the others. Juan, I would like to thank you so much for your time and for sharing your knowledge and experience with us.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, our viewers, for joining us today. Before we leave, I would like to invite you to follow our Facebook or Instagram page of Rise and Shine, where you can see all the other activities, and you can stay in touch and perhaps see our next events. Hope you enjoyed it, and have a nice afternoon.
Bye-bye.